Matt Baxendell in just a moment as we bid farewell to the month of April. And man, we got a chance to meet with Ryan Day yesterday. That was 32 minutes of just absolute awesomeness. I mean, he's so relaxed, but still very, it's interesting, relaxed, but still very businesslike, if that makes any sense. There was definitely some moments of levity, but he really got in depth on a lot of interesting issues. D tackle in the portal. Austin Saravelt definitely is going to be a starter, he says. Not sure if it's right tackle or guard, but definitely will be a starter. I'm not surprised to hear that. Quarterback competition, bunch of stuff. Dax and I are going to get into that. It was really awesome meeting with Coach Day yesterday. And before we get into all that, I'll let you guys know about our friends over at Huel. I love Huel. The Huel Black Edition ready to drink is a meal in a bottle. Yes, it's a meal that you drink. One bottle contains 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, and is low in sugar. Huel is a perfectly balanced meal designed by nutrition experts and takes the guesswork out of healthy eating. It's a great product, and we have a great deal for you guys. New customers, visit Huel.com/Bucknuts. Use my code Bucknuts to get 15% off your first order, plus a free gift. Huel is amazingly convenient. No prep, no hassle, just grab and open. And it's cheaper than a coffee. When you think about what you'd be spending on takeout or meal deals, it's a no-brainer. It tastes good. Because if it didn't, I would not be endorsing it. As you can see, I'm having their chocolate flavor right now. Right here. Pretty good. Good stuff. Healthy, meal in a bottle. New customers visit Huel.com/Bucknuts today. Use my code Bucknuts to get 15% off your first order, plus a free gift. HUEL.com/Bucknuts. There we go. All right. Now that I'm all proteined and mineraled up and vitamined up, let's bring in Bax. Bax, good to see you on a Wednesday morning, my friend.
Good morning, Mr. Biddle. How are we doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. That was just a powerhouse 32 minutes with Ryan Day yesterday.
I think we heard more from Ryan Day in 32 minutes than we did any 3-year period from Jim Tressel.
It was awesome. Yeah, he was letting his guard down. Not completely. He's not going to be like, yeah, this guy's in the lead in the quarterback battle. He says they're dead even. I mean, one guy, there's no way they're 50-50. One guy's got to be 51-49 at least, probably more than that. But I don't mind what Coach Day's doing at all. I would do the exact same thing. There's no reason to even say, yeah, this guy's a little bit ahead. It was funny that he was asked, I believe it was Bill Rabinowitz from the Dispatch asked him, even without telling us the name, is there somebody who's ahead of the other right now? And it looked like Ryan Day was going to, he almost pulled a Thad Matta, like he was going to say yes. Like he was starting to nod. He nodded and say, no. Matta used to be famous for that. Yeah, no. So I'm sure someone's ahead of the other, probably Julian saying by a little bit, but we shall see. All right. I'm going to start off right at the top with the question I asked him. Are you actively looking for a D tackle in the portal? And how do you feel like that's going? And for those that didn't hear the press conference, what happened was, Coach Day said, yes, we are looking. Yes, we have been looking, but we're not going to add a D tackle in the portal just to do it. It has to be somebody better than, most of the guys we already have, or what's the point? They're not going to just do it just to do it. So I don't know. What'd you make of that? It sounds to me like it's pretty maybe they'll still get one, man, but it takes 2 to tango. And I don't know if there's somebody in the portal right now that they actually want.
Well, and I think part of that is speaking to people that maybe aren't in the portal without tampering. I think the very simple answer is that it's like, hey, yeah, we're Ohio State and we need a really good D tackle if one happens to appear. But, I don't know if there's anybody out there right now that really matches what we're looking for. And that also sort of ties into what he was talking about, too, in terms of saying, like, we want guys that want to be at Ohio State. If you want to come here and you're just worried about money, then you're not going to come here. You're going to come here because you want to be here. Then you'll be valued while you're here, which is the ideal way to handle it. I mean, look what's going on with Tennessee. And Nico losing, $2 million this year in NIL money because he pushed UT too hard. Smart move, bud. So I think Ryan Day, he touched a lot on their philosophy of player acquisition. And, that comes back to your question on DT. Yeah, we want somebody, but only if they're good enough to be here.
Exactly right. And there was one young man that entered the portal. Everybody got excited about it. Then they realized, he was busted on felony gun charges. Probably not a guy Ryan Day's going to want, and rightfully so. Now, there's, who knows? I didn't look too hard into the story, but so maybe there's a reasonable defense for it, but I don't know. Felony gun charge is not good.
Yeah.
All right. There was so much good stuff, man. I love how he always he didn't reference the Navy SEALs by name yesterday, but like he was asked, the final question of the press conference was, about the quarterbacks. With you saying that they're like equal right now, is it gonna maybe come down to who's the gamer? Who's that guy that can really rise to the occasion? And Coach Day gave a detailed, long answer. I just put a story up on Bucknuts about it. It's called the Roy Hobbs myth. We all talk about it. We all do it. Sports fans, every one of us has done it. This guy's clutch. This guy doesn't get rattled. This guy just steps up. This guy rises to the occasion. Well, Ryan Day did a detailed study on NFL players and athletes he referenced Reggie Jackson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, where it seems like those guys rise to the occasion, right? But what they really do is they just fall back on their training, and they really are not doing anything out of the ordinary for them in those moments. And he references the Navy SEALs. They always say that the Navy SEALs, they default to their lowest level of training. So what do? They make training as difficult as possible because they teach their guys that, like, in pressure moments, like, you're going to default to your lowest level of training. So I love that he didn't mention the Navy SEALs yesterday, but he has before. He gave a great answer about how, all this stuff about guys rising to the occasion is nonsense. It's about who's most consistent in practice and things like that. I just felt that was a very insightful answer.
Yeah, and I know some folks that were Army Rangers, Navy SEAL sort of folks. Literally was having a conversation about this last night, and you talk about their training. Their training is so difficult that it's not you have to run through one wall. It's you have to run through 10 walls. How do you put yourself in a situation like that? It's a real life Kobayashi Maru for those of you out there who may not get that reference. That's a Star Trek reference where they put a captain in a situation where it's literally impossible to win. And then you can see how the person reacts in a situation like that. So yeah, when you talk about, some of these guys that are, quote, clutch, no, it's just that they're always really good and they're consistently really good. And it's a byproduct of the way they prepare themselves every single day going in. And I think that that's a really important thing because that kind of goes into context of the first game of the year next year is Texas. And one of these guys is going to get essentially their first real start. If it's Keen Holtz, we can't really count the Cotton Bowl. Even though he played, he didn't technically start. At the end of the day, which one of these guys shows up every day in training, right? Jeremiah Smith, I think Ryan Day referenced that too. He's like, well, he was an Iron Buckeye last year. He was the first freshman ever to be an Iron Buckeye because he understood what was going on. He understood the assignment. And Jeremiah Smith, the whole year, looked like a guy who was an Iron Buckeye. So I think for these quarterbacks, it's going to be, there's not a break now. Now is the time where spring's over and you get right back to work and you have your baseline of training and we go from there.
Look, we have a Friday after next reference there from Brass Tacks. I'm partial to the first one. I like Friday.
Yeah, the first one. Friday was the best of them.
So damn good. So it's smoky, Ice Cube. The whole thing is just so funny. How you can get fired on your day off? But I tell you what, who's not going to get fired is Austin Saravelt. And this is no surprise to me. I was pretty convinced he was going to be the right tackle, and I was convinced he was going to be a starter no matter what. He played really well last year. And then he was one of 3 guys to be named Iron Buckeye during the winter, along with J.J. Smith and Sonny Styles. Those are that's the list, those 3 guys. And then he looked great in the spring and seemed like he beat out Daniels at right tackle. So I think it's going to come down to who they prefer between Phillip Daniels and Tegra Shabola backs, because even though they play different spots, because if they like Daniels better than Shabola, they can put Daniels at right tackle and Saravelt at right guard. Or vice versa. If they like Tegra better, Tegra stays at right guard. Austin starts at right tackle. Ryan Day made no bones about this yesterday. This is rare for him. He said Austin Saravelt will be a starter this year for us. Not sure if it's right tackle or guard, but he will be a starter. Really talked him up.
When you mentioned the 3 Iron Buckeyes, those are probably going to be 3 of the captains next year. And at the end of the day, I think Ryan Day's thought process is if I have a captain, I have to play him. And so I think Saravelt was very good in a number of roles last year. I think he may end up playing both positions this year, depending on injury situations and everything else that goes on. But I do think that the assessment of the O-line between whether it's Daniels at right tackle that they feel better about versus Tegra at guard, Saravelt is going to start at one of those spots. I don't see a single scenario where he doesn't start. And you're right. Just listening to him talk, he does not talk like that about players very often. So I think that's very important.
Oh, geez. Where do we go next? There's just so much good stuff. Like, you can tell, like, he doesn't want to be like Matt Patricia was a home run hire, but you can just kind of feel like he wants to say it.
Yes.
You know, like, because I think I'll say it. Matt Patricia was a home run hire. It's kind of he knows something, and you know, just the way he talks about him, how you know, how the players talk about him. He also talked up Tyler Bowen, same thing. Like the players all gush about him. He meets with Ryan Day meets with every player individually after spring ball. I'm sure most, if not all, college coaches do that. But I found that very interesting. That just the way he quietly talks up Matt Patricia without going too far.
Well, and it's interesting too, because I think the role Matt Patricia has is a little different than the role Tyler Bowen has. Tyler Bowen needs to be a fire-breathing recruiter, which we've already seen in a very good way. He's the guy who's out there. He's the one who's seen by these kids off campus, whereas Patricia is not going to be the guy who goes everywhere in recruiting. He's the guy who you come to campus and here's the Super Bowl winning coordinator who's sitting here with all kinds of NFL philosophies and ties. And he's going to be the one that it almost feels like he's going to seal the deal when a lot of these defensive recruits get on campus. And I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing to have a guy like him with his level of knowledge, his history. And at the end of the day, what do these guys want? These guys want to play in the show. These guys want to go to the Super Bowl. These guys want to make that pro money. Well, guess what? Hi, here's Matt Patricia. He's been in the NFL at some of the highest level possible in terms of winning as a coordinator. He was a head coach in the NFL. And by the way, he's very, very engaged schematically. It seems like he likes being here too. And that's another part of this. It doesn't feel like he's collecting a check for a year or two until he gets an opportunity to go coach the Cardinals or something. This is a guy who wants to be here, and that's nice. So I think for Ohio State, the two hires that I just mentioned feel like gigantic hires to me right now in terms of the success rate we're going to see from them. I mean, Bowen has totally changed the way our offensive line recruiting worked immediately. You didn't need a new system. You just needed a new coach there. And again, no disrespect to the previous coach, who was a great coach, but didn't really like recruiting. Bowen likes recruiting. And then you got Patricia, who, let's just be candid, knows what he's doing. So it's going to be interesting to watch next year with this, but the initial returns are definitely good.
And I tell you what, the early returns on Bo Atkinson were good. I thought it's interesting he didn't want to stay at North Carolina and deal with the soap opera down there with Belichick and his girlfriend, who's 49 years younger than him. Can you
you don't want to play for a 24-year-old female as your co-head coach?
What's that?
You don't want to have a 24-year-old girl as your co-head coach?
And she's so controlled. That CBS interview was cringe, man. And like for her to cut that question off, that was a very innocuous question. Like, how'd you guys meet? She goes, we're not talking about that. It's like the story was they met on a plane randomly. If that was what the story was, why would she cut it off? That's like kind of a cute story. There must be something, interesting the way they met for her to cut that question off. But
I can't believe Bill Belichick of all people is in this situation, right? Like there's a lot of 75-year-olds that would be gleefully hooking up with a 24-year-old, right? Bill Belichick, the grumpy guy who John Madden once talked about the keys to winning the Super Bowl, and then Bill Belichick just glared at him on TV and goes, "No, John, the key to winning the game is scoring more points than the other team." That was it. It was the biggest snarl ever. And this is the 70-something-year-old dude who's got a 24-year-old bikini model as his girlfriend now. It's hilarious.
He's not the first man that probably never would think with the wrong head. But geez, goodness gracious, it's fascinating to see how that's going to pan out as far as him at North Carolina, the whole thing with his 24-year-old girlfriend controlling his life. I mean, college football. I mean, people are like, college football is dying. College football is like the best reality show on TV right now. It's fantastic, and we're knee deep in it, and we're still basking.
You couldn't script that one, Dave. Like if this was like Friday Night Lights, right? You couldn't script this because this is like seriously. The girl's literally like the runner-up for Miss Maine, who talks about philosophy on an airplane with Bill Belichick of all people, who should be her grandfather. And now she essentially runs his life. It is amazingly hilarious, just to be real honest.
And we're going to get into Bo Atkinson in just a moment. I'm going to let you guys know again about timeline and Bo Atkinson. I actually had a chance to ask Coach Day about that as well. Those are my two questions: D tackle in the portal and Bo Atkinson. He started off with kind of a funny response with Bo Atkinson. I'll get to that in a moment. But timeline, I've been telling you guys about timeline. Timelines might appear supplements are the best supplements for healthy aging. I've been using them for over a month now, and I can definitely tell a difference. So why is taking Timeline's MitoPure supplements important to me? I feel stronger during my workouts. I recover quicker after working out. I have more energy, period. And I want to support my cellular health. Speaking of which, cellular health is the foundation of well-being and longevity. These MitoPure tablets from Timeline recharge your cells and support any goals you have by making your systems work better. And here's the deal we can get you. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/Bucknuts to get 10% off. That's TIMELINE.com/Bucknuts to get 10% off. Great stuff. And as I was saying on Monday's show back, so with D. Rubes, I was like, my youngest daughter came home from school one day and she was like, hey, Dad, did you know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell? I said, of course I didn't know that, honey, or I wouldn't be in sports journalism. I would be like a doctor if I was that smart. But I'm glad she is smarter than me. But she knows that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So there you go. Now, is Bo Atkinson the powerhouse of the portal? Perhaps. I think that was a great get by the Buckeyes. And Ryan Day, I asked him about him. First of all, he had to turn on, make sure he already knew. So I even asked Jerry Emick, hey, I'm going to ask Coach Day this question. He is already signed. I don't want to get Coach Day in trouble. And Jerry said, yeah, we're good. So I asked Coach Day the question to lead up the press conference, and he looked. There was a compliance guy in the room. He's like, just want to make sure I'm okay. I'm allowed to answer this. And the compliance guy goes and gives him a thumbs up, and Coach Day smiled and said, all right. So I asked him about Bo Atkinson. He really he lit up, man. I mean, Bo Atkinson's coming here as a starter. What would you make of his response about Bo Atkinson? He didn't say he's going to be a starter. That's just my opinion.
I think he's very high on Bo Atkinson. I think the other thing, too, is if you look at the guys we have coming back, there's no, that guy is locked in stone. He's a returning starter. I mean, we just had the whole starting D-line drafted. Let's be blunt here. You just had the entire D-line that started the national championship game drafted. And I think the lowest one was the fourth round? Was it Ty Hamilton a fourth rounder?
Was he fifth round? He might have been
fifth or fourth.
Right around.
Either way,
fifth round,
you had 4 draft picks on your starting D-line. So guess what? Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry, look, we both think they're very, very good players. But A, you rotate at these positions, and B, no one is locked in stone as a starter. So Atkinson can come in here and think, hey, I'm going to have an opportunity to play at the bare minimum. And again, the other thing about a guy like him is that, well, first of all, Ryan Day did a great job recruiting here. He was like, oh, the mom's from New Hampshire. I don't get this opportunity very often to talk about the Granite State. So he won over the mom by saying that they're talking about their shared New Hampshire upbringing. But on the flip side, at the end of the day, you're bringing in a guy who played in the ACC and was a guy that they did not want to lose. This is I always have a rule. When a guy goes in the portal and then we end up landing him, I always go to the other team's site and see how they react to the news of the guy going in the portal. Right. In the North Carolina fans' site about Bo Atkinson going into the portal was universally, oh, no, right? One of those, why is he leaving?
Right.
It wasn't one of those good riddance. See you later. Yeah, he didn't play much. That was like watching Caleb Downs leave Alabama reaction from the North Carolina fans. So I feel like that's a pretty good indicator. And I know that's very unscientific, but it gets you. Hey, as the people's champ, I like to see what the people are saying, and the people's reaction of a place that I don't know much about other than they like basketball is, oh God, we can't lose that guy. So that's a good choice for Ohio State from that perspective. So I think he's right to think he can come in and compete. And I think if you're Ryan Day, you're not bringing a guy in like that after talking about how much you want people to be at Ohio State because they want to be at Ohio State, not because of money, and then go against your word. You've built too much of a program culture and too much credibility with the way you've ran yourself so far. So, yeah, I think he legit has a chance to start because I think he's good enough.
Coach Day clearly knows they need more depth at D tackle. Did you notice his little subtle shot when he was talking up the offensive line? He was even talking about Josh Padilla and talking about all these offensive linemen, how good they look. He's like, you didn't, but you look at him and you wonder how they'd look if Tyleek and Ty were out there. It's like, oh, yeah, right. God, how about that? He basically said, yeah, but they're not really facing any good D tackles. What if they had Tyleek out there and Ty? I was like, oh, boy. So, obviously, Coach Day's not happy with the D tackle situation. That's not breaking news. We all know that. Defensive end, Bo Atkinson transferring in. Logan George was a great get in the portal. Underrated get in the portal. I mean, he was very productive, but it was at Idaho State, so nobody really thought anything of it. And then the coaches just gushed about him in the spring. So you get Logan George, you get Bo Atkinson, all the guys coming back with despite losing like Jack and JTT, huge shoes to fill. But you still have Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry, CJ Hicks is making the move, has made the move defensive end. Coach Day talked about that. You have Zion Grady, who I think is going to be somewhat in the mix. I don't think he's going to play a ton, but he won't redshirt. He'll be in the mix as a true freshman. And then maybe Dominic Kirks can get out there as well as and provide good depth at DN. So I like what I'm seeing at DN, and Coach Day seemed to feel the same way, Bax.
Yeah, and that was something he talked about too. Is that when he was talking up, I think it was Austin Saravelt. He was saying, look who he's going against, and sorry, it was Philip Daniels. He was like, look at how much better he's gotten going against the defensive ends we have here compared to where he was before, right? But that was like, that's a big reason a guy like Philip Daniels, with all the eligibility he has left transferred in here, is that even if he doesn't start this year, you think he's not going to get better, so that when he eventually starts, he's a much better football player going against Caden Curry and Kenyatta and all those other guys every day. But that was the same voice where he talked about, I think he said something to the effect of, the O-line won more than they lost over the course of the spring, so that the D-line needs to get deeper. And then he talked about how good the ends are. So I think we're in a position where you're right. He wasn't saying that our D tackles aren't good enough, but he essentially said our D tackles aren't good enough. Right. So we're going to have to see how that pans out.
Yeah, he's not as quite as blunt as, let's say, Urban Meyer when he came out his first spring. He was like, our wide receiver room is a clown show. It's like, Urban, tell us how you really feel about these wideouts. Like, I just did. They're a clown show. We didn't actually ask that follow-up question. He made it very clear how he felt about the wide receiver. So Coach Day's a little more subtle. Even this version of Coach Day that's very relaxed, because he is still basking. He can't say that. He has to say, now, we celebrated for a week, and now we're on to the next thing. I bet they celebrated for more than a week.
Ryan Day's not basking. This is a man who just had the weight of the world taken off of his shoulders.
Yeah.
And now the weight will slowly return as we get closer towards the Michigan game. I'll tell you that much. But for now, this is the least pressure summer Ryan Day has had since his first summer as the head coach at Ohio State.
And I like that he's having the guys just step away for a while. He wants the guys to get away after they need to finish up school and finish up working out and stuff. Like CJ Hicks was over there yesterday getting in extra work. But after they finish school here in a couple of weeks, he wants them just to get away from football. But then when they come back in June, he says it's go time. We have to be ready to go full throttle when we come back in June. But I like that he was wanting the guys to get away for, I don't know, roughly a month just to recharge their batteries, then come in and try and repeat. I'm looking at the transcript right now. There was so much good stuff. He didn't really get into the linebackers, but your thoughts on the linebackers, I think that's one thing that's not getting talked about enough. Now, Cody Simon had a fantastic year last year. We all know that. I'm so glad he was a fourth-round pick. Arizona Cardinals continue to stack up Buckeyes. They also got Denzel Burke to go along with Paris Johnson and Marvin Harrison Jr. But I really like these linebackers, man, with Sonny Styles. Arvell Reese, to me, is a budding superstar, and Peyton Pierce is as well. I love those three guys.
Well, those three those are the three I think are going to play the most. But, it was interesting hearing him talk about how impressed he was with Sonny Styles' transition, getting closer to the football from safety to linebacker. That was something Ryan Day talked about yesterday, was he was amazed how quickly Styles took to it. And you saw it over the course of the year. I think that we talk about some of the guys that switch positions, right? Like, you don't always immediately step into something excellently. And we saw Styles get better over the course of the year. We saw Cody Simon when Dave was out the first year. He was really fully healthy for us the whole time he was at Ohio State. Simon, it felt like he always had nagging injuries or was missing stuff all the way until that point.
Yeah, and I want to say was he healthy as a fourth-year junior in 23? Maybe he was played, but he was banged up.
I think he played, but he was banged up.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So it felt like he was always the guy who had something, and he never really got healthy, right? And then, it reminded me, it was the biggest jump from a fifth-year guy or a fourth-year guy that I've seen at linebacker, going back to the national championship under Urban.
Curtis Grant.
Curtis Grant. Yep. Curtis Grant was the guy who went from oh man, what are we doing here, to wow, he had a great season. Like, we were all convinced that year Raekwon McMillan was going to take the starter's job by game 3. And Curtis Grant just kept playing better. It was kind of like that with Simon this year. At the start of the year, I was sitting there going, man, Reese can really play. Reese might take that spot. And Cody Simon was just like, nah, I'm going to keep being really good too. And he stayed on the field and was an invaluable part of a national championship team and got drafted. So he's an awesome story. And he's also it's important for programs culturally to be able to have guys like that stick around and kind of fight through it a little bit. Because when we point at these kind of guys, you can say, look, there's a reason you shouldn't run off to greener pastures if it makes sense to stay here. And it's stuff like that. It's not why Ohio State didn't lose guys in the portal. I mean, that's just the blunt truth. You didn't lose anybody after spring because everybody feels like they can keep working on it. They're going to get better as being a part of it. And I think that's huge to have a guy like Cody Simon come through the program, kind of struggle, kind of have some adversity, and then come out the other end, find himself on the field and play a huge role one of his last years there and be a draft pick. So I think that's an awesome sign for the culture of Ohio State that you have guys like that you can point at. And now you have a number of young guys that are going to be stepping into that starting role. Reese, Pierce. And then you got a guy in Styles who was a giant contributor last year and is very much likely to be the captain on defense this year. So when you have 8 starters drafted on D, Dave, I suppose you're not going to have many options for returning captains. But it's clearly Downs and Styles, right? They're the two.
It's I mean, yeah, all eight guys that were draft eligible. This not draft eligible. Sonny would have been draft eligible, but all the guys and IGB too. All 8 guys that were in this year's draft got drafted, and the 3 returnees are all going to get drafted. Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, and IGB, and then a lot of the backups will get drafted. It reminds me a lot of 2002. The entire 2002 starting defense got drafted. Plus, you had backups like AJ Hawk that ended up being a first-round pick.
Bobby Carpenter,
Will Allen. We have Bobby Carpenter, first-round pick. Will Allen, I think it was like a 3rd-round, 4th-round pick by your Steelers. Before I let you go, and I'm going to answer some questions after I let Bax go. He's got to get to work. I can't let you go without asking you, why do your Steelers torture me? They torture me during the season. Then they torture me during the offseason by drafting Buckeyes and not drafting Buckeyes where they reached for them. They get great value, and it's always a Buckeye that I love. How does Cameron Hayward fall that far in the 1st round? Why does he go to the Steelers? Ryan Shazier, Santonio Holmes, Jack Sawyer, and Will Howard. You get Jack Sawyer in the 4th freaking round. You get Will Howard in the 6th round. How does that? What? Why? How? No, I'm happy. I'm happy for you. And Ryan Day said something interesting. He said all of he feels bad Seth didn't get drafted, but at least that's the Bengals. I do like that. Our pseudo 7th-round pick, since we didn't have a 7th-round pick. But he feels like all the guys went in, like they're in a good spot. And that's a good thing about Will. Even though he fell to the 6th round, he's already a rich man because of the NIL he got last year. And I'm saying this as a Bengal fan. He landed in a great spot. So congratulations.
I think Will Howard to the Steelers was sort of the obvious fit too, because of what Pittsburgh historically did with Ben Roethlisberger, the bigger body quarterback that had a little bit of pocket mobility. The value Pittsburgh got with those two, honestly, Pittsburgh's whole draft, I thought, was exceptional. Yep. And as a Steelers fan, the draft started off annoyingly for me because the Browns made a bunch of good decisions early, trading down and taking the same guy and adding picks, making the right pick. I'm like, look at them. They didn't take Shedeur Sanders. Look how smart they are. And then the Browns started making their usual Browns mistakes and took Shedeur Sanders. But from a Pittsburgh point of view, I think the Steelers had an excellent draft. They took exactly the players they needed. I think they only drafted Big Ten players too, which made me laugh. I think they took 2 Iowa guys. They took 2 Ohio State guys. They took an Oregon guy. I'm like, man, we're doing well here. The 7th rounders might have been from elsewhere, but I think Will Howard in Pittsburgh is a great fit. I think Jack Sawyer in Pittsburgh is a great fit. I also don't think there's many spots where Ohio State players were taken that I don't feel good about their chances of being on the team. And I think to piggyback back to what you said, Seth McLaughlin in any other scenario would have been drafted. This is the Remington Award-winning center. If he doesn't tear his Achilles, he's a 4th rounder at worst. I mean, a guy like that doesn't get through the middle of the draft. He had Corey Linsley written all over him. But with the Achilles injury, I think a team was just like, eh. So the Bengals are smart this year. They'll put him on injured reserve all season as he recovers. And then in a year, he may well be in contention to start at center for them if he recovers from his Achilles the way you hope he would. So, what's the record? I believe it's 15 for a team all time, Dave, in one draft. Yep. So Ohio State didn't get to tie that, unfortunately. I was really hoping McLaughlin would go in the 7th. I was cheering for him or G. Scott, but at the end of the day, G. Scott I actually thought G. Scott was going to go to the Patriots as Mr. Irrelevant. I thought that was going to be exactly what happened, and they ended up signing there anyway. So it worked out for him. But I think at the end of the day, to put a little bow on this draft, Ohio State had an exceptional draft, and they had a draft where I think a lot of people anticipated they'd have a lot of players go later than they did. And I think a guy like Will Howard and Jack Sawyer, from a Pittsburgh perspective, they're the two that I thought went too late for where I thought they would go. I thought a lot of the other players landed similar or ahead of their slot, right? Like I was gleeful when Tyleik Williams was a first-round pick.
Yep.
Gleeful.
Yep.
But I think a lot of the other guys roughly went where I thought they'd go, or a little better, right? Like the tailbacks going the start of the second, everybody was stuck in mid, late second, third round for them, right? Both of those guys, my goodness, what a story that is there. Jack Sawyer should not have fallen to the fourth round. That's crazy world. That's absolutely crazy world.
Of course, he goes to the Steelers.
And he'll play like 10 years for the Steelers as a fourth rounder. You'll watch. Then
I know.
Will Howard going to the Steelers at a time where Mason Rudolph is the quarterback of the future, or of the present, not of the future, is a perfect scenario for him to sit and learn and very possibly show the Steelers that they don't need to draft a quarterback next year because Will's ready to take over. And by the way, I don't know how many quarterbacks have much better film than him from this past year. So if you have a diamond in the rough quarterback, I can think of another 6-rounder that did pretty well coming out of a Big Ten school. So we'll see. But I think for Ohio State, this is nothing short of a banner draft, and it kind of puts the pin on what's been an exceptional year.
And as confident as Will is, that's exactly what he's thinking. Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. I'll do the same thing. All right. Go be the GOAT,
Yep.
Will. Go be the GOAT. So, all right. I guess I'll be rooting for Will and Jack except for twice a year. That's exactly what I told Mike Tomlin when I met him at Pro Day. By the way, the Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski wasn't there. The Bengals head coach Zach Taylor wasn't there. Steelers head coach was there. I got a chance to talk to him for a minute. Cool guy. No surprise there. And I told him, I respect, even though I'm a Bengals fan, I respect the heck out of you, and I always have. I said, but twice a year, I don't like you. And Mike Tomlin laughed. Cool guy. I know you Yinzers are not really happy with him, but
I think Mike Tomlin is a good coach and a good man who has overstayed his message in Pittsburgh. I think that Pittsburgh needs a different coach, very much so.
Bring it to Cincinnati.
You can have him. That's fine. I think Pittsburgh needs. It's in reality, he's been there 17 years, right? Like it's at the end of the day, it's not that he's a bad coach. I think in any setting, like college is the only time where you can really see these coaches stay forever like this because the roster changes underneath them, right? It's a new message, that new people hearing your message all the time. You don't see pro coaches stick around very long. Pittsburgh just did it with Mike Sullivan in hockey yesterday. He was the Stanley Cup champion. He was the Pens coach for 10 years. And they haven't made the playoffs in 3 years and haven't won a cup in 7. And it's like, maybe his message isn't getting through the way it needs to. That's just real.
The Steelers are kind of the exception to the rule, though, because they had Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and now Tomlin. Like they believe in that. I know you got to get to work, man. I've kept you longer than I expected, than I anticipated.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I know you got to get to. I know you got to go do your engineering stuff. All right.
Yeah, I got to go engineer more Ohio State thoughts. So
there you go.
Go Bucks. Thanks for having me on, Dave.
All right. Still basking is backs. Still baxing. All right. Great stuff from Backs. All right. I'm going to answer a couple of the questions I have in the queue. Went a little longer than I intended. But I want to let you guys know about cornbread hemp. A great deal you guys can get. Been talking about this company, and it's great to see them growing and growing. It's great to see you guys supporting them. Our ad rep tells us that you guys are definitely taking advantage of the deal we can get you from Cornbread Hemp. It is time to experience your healthy happy hour. Cornbread Hemp provides a natural and healthier way to experience a carefree moment. Cornbread's THC gummies offer a balanced sense of happiness and relaxation. These are America's only USDA-approved organic THC gummies. Real THC, no synthetics, 100% legal hemp, fast and free shipping, made in the USA. If you're looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. Again, they've created the only USDA-approved organic THC gummy. It's 100% legal. As a special offer for Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Pretty good. 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/bucknuts. Use promo code Bucknuts at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/bucknuts. Use code Bucknuts for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier happy hour. All right. I'm going to get to a couple questions. I'm going to close up shop here. A couple in the queue. All right. Start with from YouTube, Hollywood Hagger. Do you get the feeling that Day is worried about the defense? He's clearly worried about the interior of the defensive line. I get the feeling he's not worried about anything else. I mean, this secondary was BIA last year. I mean, literally they were the best in America, and I think they're going to be best in America again. You look at this secondary, I think they're loaded in terms of starters and depth. I mean, in theory, your backup corners are going to be Devin Sanchez and Aaron Scott. That's pretty good for backup corners. You're going to have like guys like whoever loses the battle between Jalen McClain and Malik Hartford as a backup safety. Probably Hartford will be the backup safety. I think McClain's going to win that job. And Fahim Delane looks good. Inky Jones is a guy that nobody talks about that always looks good, not just because he had that great interception in the spring game. Inky Jones is always making plays. I believe he's on scholarship now. I don't even think it matters anymore. If you're on the team, you're basically on scholarship now, unless the 105 unless they change that and make it back to like 120 or whatever with the scholarship limit, or the roster limits. But Inky Jones came to Ohio State as a preferred walk-on when that was still a thing. And then I believe he got bumped up to scholarship. So they really like their secondary. I mean, IGB coming back was big. Jermaine Matthews. Obviously, Caleb Downs, the best defensive player in college football. So, and I think they love the linebackers too. I think they love the linebackers with Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese and Peyton Pierce. You got some decent depth there. It's young, but they like Riley Pettijohn and TJ Alford as well. Garrett Stover could maybe add some more depth there, but they like those two true freshmen that came in. But they really like that top three. That's why I think we're going to see Patricia mix things up a lot more. And speaking of the defensive line, I think they like the defensive ends. We talked about that earlier. They go about 7 deep at D end, including guys like Zion Grady and Dominic Kirks. So getting Bo Atkinson to go along with the guy they already got, Logan George, to go along with Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson. They feel pretty good there. CJ Hicks. So they like D end. D tackles the issue. And I think they can do some odd fronts this year, which they didn't do last year, because why would you? You had 4 guys that were all draft picks. You had a first rounder, a second rounder, a fourth rounder who shouldn't have been a fourth rounder, and a fifth rounder. Jack should have been at least a third rounder, in my opinion, but whatever. All 4 of those guys got drafted, so you're not going to do a lot of odd fronts when that's your strength. But this year, you can see something where they do some 3-4, maybe put Caden McDonald at the nose. Still have Edric Houston out there as like a, even though he's now a 3 tech, a 3-4, he can play that one of the defensive end spots, and maybe have whoever else in there, maybe a Bo Atkinson in there. And then you can use guys as kind of like rush ends on the, kind of not move CJ Hicks back to linebacker, but almost kind of use him as a stand-up 3-4 outside linebacker. Arvell Reese could do that. They've got dudes that can do that. Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry. Those guys can do that. And then you could have guys like, Sonny Styles can come off the edge. That's another guy if you're running a 3-4. He can be really dangerous, a guy you can move around a lot. Arvell Reese is another chess piece. He's probably going to be inside. But because Peyton Pierce is just inside, what did James Laurinaitis call him? An absolute natural middle linebacker. So he's going to be out there a lot. If he's not technically a starter, he'll play starter snaps. So with Peyton Pierce being that true middle linebacker, if they're in a 3-4, they can have Arvell and Peyton as the middle linebackers. But they're going to move Arvell around, use that athleticism. He's going to have a big-time year. So I think they like the linebackers. So to answer your question, I think Coach Day overall is optimistic about the defense, but also knows that if you're not good at defensive tackle, that can wreck everything else. If you're getting beat in the interior, good luck. They're going to run it down your throat, and then you're not going to get pressure on the quarterback. So they're going to throw it too. So they've got to figure something out. And I do think they like Caden McDonald and Edric Houston. I just don't think Ryan Day's made it clear he doesn't like the depth. Let me give you one more question here, and we'll finish up the Bucknuts Morning 40. You guys believe when we launched the first ever Ohio State podcast, it was literally going to be 5 minutes a day? Yeah, roughly 5 minutes, or 8 times that much. All right, Rick on Facebook. Rick Montoya on Facebook. What are your early picks for captains this year? Yeah, we touched on it a little bit. I think it's pretty obvious that on defense, it's going to be Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles. Not that you have to do 2 and 2, but let's say they do 2 and 2. So I think it'll clearly be Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs, no doubt about it. And then on offense, it's interesting. Do you make a guy like J.J. Smith a captain as a sophomore? Now, not just because of his play on the field, although pretty good. He's going to be the best wide receiver to ever come through Ohio State, and that is crazy to say that. That's a massively high bar. And I think most of us would agree, right? I think we'll be surprised when JJ leaves Ohio State, if he's not considered the best wide receiver ever come through here, and that is a massively high bar. Chris Carter, we go on and all the guys recently. I mean, it wasn't long ago we were saying Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the best to come through here. Boom, already it's like, JJ's actually better than him. So, which is saying a lot. Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Jig, all these guys, Terry Glenn, Joey Galloway. I'm gonna do my best. David Boss, I'm gonna do my best. John Gruden here, just name a bunch of receivers that are awesome. Bobby Olive, man. No, Bobby Olive was good. He's not in that discussion though. Mike Lanise, man. Tell you about Mike Lanise, man. He was a Rhodes Scholar, man. I love that Gruden thing. I mean, Mike Lanise wasn't just good on the field, man. He was a 4.9 student on a 4.0 grade scale. All right, but all right, offense. Let me think about this. So who are you going to do on offense? I would say J.J. Smith. Why not? He's an Iron Buckeye. Yeah, he's just a sophomore, but he's clearly one of the leaders. They do want him to be more vocal, but he's one of those guys that leads by example. Maybe a Carnell Tate. Who am I leaving out here? Probably somebody on the offensive line, maybe Carson Hinsman. Although he was in the doghouse for like half of last year, so I don't know if they'd make Carson Hinsman a captain. But they'll have some. Yeah, I would probably make J.J. Smith a captain. You're probably not going to do one of the transfers like a Max Clare. I don't think would be, because even Will Howard wasn't technically a captain last year. They usually don't make transfers a captain. Their first year, Caleb Downs was a transfer, but this is his second year, so he'll be a captain. I'm sure you guys are saying, telling me some guys I'm leaving out here. Yeah, Santonio Holmes. Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, we could go on and on and on. So let me try and think of one more guy here. I'm leaving somebody out so J.J. Smith. Who else would I make? I don't think one of the quarterbacks will be. I think Julian Sain's going to be the starting quarterback, and I don't think they're going to make him a captain as a redshirt freshman. Maybe they will. Yeah, I guess Carnell Tate could be in the mix. Yeah, I don't know. Ethan Onionwa wouldn't be because he's the fifth-year senior on the offensive line, but he's maybe an Austin Saravelt. Again, he's a third-year sophomore, but one of only three guys to be Iron Buckeye. All three of those guys might be captain. So I guess, yes, I don't really have a good answer for offense. I'll go with Jeremiah Smith, and I'll go with Austin Saravelt will be your offensive captains for the Buckeyes this year. All right, great stuff, guys. I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate you guys tuning into the show. Thanks to Bax. Thanks to all of you. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Go Bucks. Still basking.